大家好 Welcome to 中文很棒 Chinese is awesome. With me, 马老师. Today, we're going to look at 4 ways to respond to thanks or an apology and some cultural tips around those words. So, if someone says 谢谢或者对不起 thanks or sorry, how would you respond? Well, there are 4 ways we're going to look at today. 没关系没事没什么 and 不要紧 So let's get started. 没关系 is kind of like in English when we say it doesn't matter. But you'll notice in it doesn't matter and something like it's alright, the word it. And this is indicative of the Western way of thinking about events, that they're static and that they're able to be divided into pieces. Similarly, the word matter. Well, the word matter means stuff. But in the Chinese phrase 没关系, it means there's no connection, there's no relationship. Alright, so in Chinese, it's all about relationships and connections. And if you want to learn more about that, you can watch my other videos on this channel. Whereas the Western view is more about parts and pieces. And we see that even with information technology, when the tiniest little bits of information are called bits. So, Chinese tends to look at relationships, and Western science viewpoint tends to break things down and look at how they work. Let's take a bit of a Western science influenced look at 没关系 and break it down. So, we've got the word 没, which is short for 没有. And if you want to learn more about 没有, you can watch my other videos in this series. But basically, it's the negative form of to have. So 有 means to have. 没有 or 没 by itself means don't have. And here are some of the other possible meanings. Doesn't have, didn't have, won't have. And by extension, it also means without. So Chinese is really awesome. That's the theme of this series, 中文很棒. And we don't have to worry about conjugation or tense. It doesn't matter who has, or when they had, or when they will have. It's always the same, 有 or 没有in this case, don't have. So now let's look at the word 关系. So here on the left is simplified, on the right is a traditional form of 关系. And what's 关系all about? Well, we're not going to cover a lot of detail in this video. You can watch some other videos in this channel. But basically, 关系is talking about relationships and connections. And these are very, very important in Chinese culture and also shown in the Chinese language. So, 关系, if you talk about a person having 关系, you might say a person 有关系, alright? That's kind of the opposite of 没关系. Well, if a person 有关系, if a person has 关系or has connections, has relationships, this often has to do with some relationships or connections that they have to help them do business or to do something else, to smooth the way for something. And there's an interesting phrase, 拉关系, right? 拉 means to pull. So, 拉关系 is like calling on a favor. You're using the connections and relationships that you have to get something done. So you might say it's using your pull, your influence with someone to get something done. And if you're talking about 2 things that are related, Y 跟 X 有关系. It means that Y has something to do with X. Let's have a look at this sample sentence here. 他的工作跟银行有关系. So here the Y is represented with 他的工作, his work, and the X is represented with 银行, bank. So 他的工作, his work, 跟 with 银行, bank, 有关系, has something to do with, is related to. So the whole sentence means his work has something to do with banks or banking. 他的工作跟银行有关系. Let's have a look at the second phrase we're going to look at today, 没事. And 没事 literally means there's no matter, there's no affair. And the word 事 here we could think of as something to do. But it's a happening. In Chinese, it's a process. It's not a thing like we tend to talk about an event, right? We say, oh, it's an event, it's a thing, it happened in a particular point in time. Whereas 是 has this more of a feeling of a happening. And that's also a kind of cultural way of that the Chinese people look at the world, that these things are sort of a process, a little bit differently to how English speakers talk about these kind of things. So, 你没事吧 is another phrase you can use with 没事. And what this means gives you a little bit of a nuance of the word 没事. What this means is something like, are you okay? Or, you're okay, right? So let's say someone crashes their bike into you by mistake or steps on your foot by accident. They might say, oh, 你没事吧? Right? Are you okay? And if you're alright, you can say, 我没事. So this is 没事. And if you put 你的 in the middle, your, 没, there's not, 你的, your, 事. None of your business, none of your affair. This is a little bit rude, but you can see how 没事 can be changed by putting this 你的 in and get a different phrase. So this gives you some of the feeling of the way that 没事 can be used in different contexts. Alright, now if we know that 没事 means, it's nothing, don't worry about it. What's 我有事? So 没 is the opposite of 有. So what's the meaning of 我有事? Well, 我有事 is a very, very useful phrase. It's a generic excuse for not being able to do something. And what it's saying basically is, I have a matter or some matters to attend to. And once again in Chinese is awesome. There's no plural. We don't have to learn a separate word for 事. So, in other words, it's saying there's something on and it implies that I'm busy. So, 我有事, a very, very useful phrase. And Chinese people might ask you, why can't you come? All you need to say is 我有事. You don't need to make up any excuses about someone being sick or give me any more detail than that. 我有事 is enough, and people probably won't inquire anymore. 没什么. Well, 没什么 is kind of like 没事. It means it's nothing. Now, we're used to seeing 什么 as beginners in questions. So, in that case, it means what, or sometimes which. So, 你叫什么名字 means you're called what name? What's your name? What's your name? But 什么 in a statement like in this, 没什么, means any, or anything, or something. So 没有, there isn't, 什么, something, there isn't something, means there's nothing. It's often used to respond to expressions of thanks. So someone says 谢谢, 没什么, 没什么. It's no big deal. Alright, you can also use this with 是, we saw before, 没事. You can combine with 是, you can get a sentence like this. 没什么大事, 没什么大事. And in Chinglish, in sort of literal translation, it means there are not any big matters. Alright, so you'll notice here the word 大, big. Well, big signifies important. So what this phrase is saying is something like, it's no big thing. Or maybe it wasn't anything important or anything serious. Let's look at the fourth phrase, 不要紧. 不要紧 literally means not serious. But what the Chinese mean when they say this to you is something like, don't take it seriously. Don't worry. Alright, so it's not saying that the event itself isn't serious. It's reassuring you and saying you shouldn't worry. So we've looked at 4 ways to respond to thanks or an apology in Chinese. 没关系, 没事, 没什么, and 不要紧. Please check out my other videos on 中文很棒, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.